Hey guys, Sean here, and welcome to the second time today to the F1 Word Live. First off, before we hop into the actual stream itself, just thank you for all your feedback from this afternoon's stream, the pre-race show. You all seem to love it, so it could become a permanent fixture. I'll talk to Jonty about that later in the week. How are we all doing in chat? Good to see you all again. What did you think to the race? Seems to be dividing a few. I just saw a great comment before I get too into it. 5 out of 10 for the race, but 8 out of 10 for Monaco. I think the 8's probably generous, but I think that's kind of how you'll have to look at Monaco as a whole. Not a great Grand Prix, but by Monaco standards, probably all right, to be fair. Tense and intriguing, I think I called it on Twitter. Best way to sum it up. Don't forget to follow me on social media, by the way. All the links are in the description down below. And if you're new to the channel, please do hit that subscribe button. The more we can get on board, the better, because we love opening up this debate. And God knows I've had some debating this week on the channel. Let's kick off, though, as we always do pretty much in these, by having a look at the race results. Obviously, spoiler alert, I shouldn't have done that really. I said I was going to stop, but there you go. Daniel Ricciardo did take victory. An incredible drive. We'll talk about him in just a moment. Really, when you consider what he was going through, absolutely brilliant. Sebastian Vettel in second place, Lewis Hamilton third, Kimi Raikkonen fourth, Bottas fifth. You know, top six on the face of it. It looks like nothing happened, doesn't it? They all kind of finished where they started, which is not absolutely brilliant. Great drive from Gasly in seventh place, my one to watch, just saying. Nico Hülkenberg, P8, Max Verstappen, fantastic recovery to ninth. Carlos Sainz in 10th place, picking up that last point for Renault. Marcus Ericsson, I didn't even realise he got that high, looking at this result again, sorry. P11, P12 for Perez, 13th for Magnussen. I suppose not a bad recovery for him. Van Dorn 14th, Grosjean 15th, Williams, miserable day all round, 16th and 17th, a million miles away from anybody. That is a slight exaggeration, but not really, to be honest. Leclerc and Hartley did get classified in 18th and 19th, but they crashed and, of course, therefore, as far as I'm concerned, didn't finish the race. And Fernando Alonso, irony of ironies, has been chased down by the Toro Rosso Honda. His car fails him, and he pulls over, and, of course, yeah, that was it for him. So we'll kick off, now we've had a look at that race result, and say, pretty standard Monaco, Jonty. How are we doing?
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. It was pretty much what we expected. A little bit of excitement, but not a lot.
No, it's, like I say, tense and intriguing is just the only way I can really sum that up from my point of view, to be honest. It wasn't awful by Monaco standards, but it still wasn't brilliant, to be honest, was it? It was kind of, what was it you said on Twitter? Something...
almost some excitement.
That's the one, yeah. And there was somebody else who said something like, lots of promise for something to happen, but it never really happened. But we'll start off with the race winner, because I think we have to. On the face of it, if you've not seen the Grand Prix, it looks like a pole to flag win, but that drive is up there with some of the greats, Jonty, because the things he had to manage in that race, he's just staking a claim for that seat at Red Bull, isn't he?
He really is. That's his team. It's certainly becoming that way. And if certain people keep going the way they are, although he did bring it back a lot better today, things could change with the way that they plan for the next few years.
It's just so impressive. And Christian Horner on Team Radio likened it to Schumacher's drive at Spain in '95 when he was stuck in, I think, fifth gear, was it? I think it was fifth gear, yeah.
Yeah.
Likened it to that one. And, I mean, that may be going a bit far, because what we don't really know, do we? In comparison, the eras are completely different, and the physicality of the cars are entirely different. But it's still, he deserves a lot of praise for that. He did get the official driver of the day, and I think, to be fair, you can't really argue with that. I mean, if it had been he went out front as we all expected, disappeared, and that was it, then probably he wouldn't get the praise that he's getting now. But I will say, as a Grand Prix as a whole, I was very frustrated sat watching it to know that the 5 of the best drivers on the grid were driving around half-heartedly looking after tyres and the car and trying to manage at home. Monaco is all about being on the edge. That is what makes Monaco exciting, and they all trundle around like that. When you've got Lance Stroll at one point in the race 4.5 seconds quicker than the leaders, you know something's not right.
Yeah, it was a bit lackluster at the front, to say the least. I was desperately hoping for just a VSC with about 10-15 laps to go, because then the top guys, they wouldn't have been able to get the temperature back in the tyres. We saw that happen with Vettel anyway. and probably with Lewis with the way they dropped off in those last few laps. But it was, we just needed a bit more degradation from the tyres. If they'd just been going that tiny bit quicker, they would have been forced to change or really drag them out and really make it interesting. Because I was looking at it thinking, hang on, we've got Ocon, Gasly, Hülkenberg, all these people on fresh or harder tyres. They can make it to the end. And if the top four have to stop, which I was convinced they were going to need to, I think the VSE might have actually saved them in some way. It could have been much more interesting.
It did look like they were going to have to stop. We were talking about it during the race, weren't we? Those tyres, I mean, first of all, 77 laps for the Hypersofts. If the Ultrasofts can't even do half that without them going flat out, then that's absolute rubbish. I don't know where that came from, because that clearly is not true at all. Conditions didn't change. If anything, it was cooler today. So the tyres, although maybe didn't perform as well, should have lasted longer. So, you know, wherever that 77 laps, I assume somebody just pulled it out their backside, quite frankly, because there's just no way that was ever going to happen. And we knew that from the minute they got out in practice. So, yeah. I was
thinking maybe that was a little bit of propaganda on Pirelli's part, since they've been getting so much stick for the life of the tyres and all the issue with the different tyres for Spain, France and Britain.
Yeah, I mean, I think the tyres probably sum up perhaps why Vettel couldn't put that challenge on Ricciardo. Aside from the fact it's Monaco and it's difficult to follow and overtake anyway. But those tyres on the Ferrari were absolutely horrific. And despite the fact that Ricciardo was losing all that straight line speed with his MGUK failing, Vettel couldn't get anywhere near him. I think I was watching the timing for a few laps and he was sort of getting to within half a second as they got to the top at Casino Square. And then from then on in, he just fell away to the tunnel and then fell away again until the swimming pool. He just couldn't get anywhere near him. Yeah,
I mean, Danny would have been a lot better off on tyres, purely because he's out the front.
Yeah.
And it's Vettel, Lewis getting all the hot air and all the turbulence, moving around a bit more. But they really shouldn't have been going that long. I mean, if you were in the team, would you have been thinking about making a different strategy, or would you try to hold it out, not knowing that the VSC was coming? It's a very hard call to make, but I think some of the people, if Max had been up there, it would have been very different, and not instead of starting from the back.
I put on Twitter that Bottas could win the race. I was absolutely adamant in my head that Hamilton would pit and pull the trigger on the front two, because if he pitted, they might not necessarily have to pit, because it would depend on whether he could get past. They've got track position, but it might, certainly Ferrari, the way they can be with strategy, it might have made them jittery. So I thought he would pull the trigger and go for that second stop. It looked like he was going to do it the way he was talking over team radio, and I think that would have really spiced things up, and that could have even handed the race to Raikkonen or Bottas, of course. But I think the midfield nailed the strategy today. I think the midfield absolutely got it spot on, but then they had that free choice, didn't they? So
yeah, and it again shows how important the track position is. I think Red Bull made a mistake with Max. They really should have gone super soft. That would have made such a much bigger difference. He would have been going on to the hypers much closer to the end and would have been able to push him that bit harder.
Yeah, because he came up against Hülkenberg, didn't he? Who also had the fresher tyres on as well, so he was just not able to get past. But I think, looking at that order, Jonty, standout performances, I'm not going to say much about Raikkonen and Bottas, because frankly they didn't really do an awful lot. Of course they're driving around Monaco, but not really. They got a bit close, didn't they? And Bottas kind of closed in, but nothing really happened between them. But I think Pierre Gasly, he won't get a lot of credit, because he just won't, but he deserves a lot for that. P7 from 10th, holding off the likes of Hülkenberg, Verstappen. Obviously, we'll get credit. We'll talk about him in a moment, but I think he deserves credit. So does Ocon as well for getting that car home in 6th.
Yeah, absolutely. I've just seen someone in the chat saying any comments on Ocon offering zero fight after hand pitted. I would say it was pretty different, certainly towards the end of the race. At one point, it was 39 seconds from the leader back to Ocon Gasly, and then about 10 laps later, it was 20 seconds. They were closing them down at a rapid rate of knots. Unfortunately, the VSC kind of came a bit too late to allow them to chase all the way. But they were seriously rapid in the later part of the race.
What did you make of that Ocon-Hamilton pass, the Hamilton pass on Ocon, honestly?
that was engine supplier orders as opposed to team orders, blatantly.
There's a little part of me that doesn't want to jump into all that kind of thing, but it did look like that, didn't it, looking back? There's a little bit of me that thinks maybe perhaps Ocon was just thinking, well, I'm not going to win this fight, so I'll let him go. But they usually do that after a driver gets alongside, don't they? They don't do it to the point where they back off like that. It did look... No, I don't want to say suspicious because it's within the rules, isn't it, I guess? It's a grey area. It's a very grey area.
I don't know if it is in the rules or not. Team orders are allowed, but getting someone... I mean, there's always a possibility the Force City did it off their own bat, saying, look, don't scrap with him. We need to keep these engines. We don't want to do anything to upset Mercedes. But it was very, very cynical in the way it was performed.
Ocon with an eye on that Bottas seat, maybe?
Well, you never know. We heard nothing over the radio. Again, it's entirely possible he decided that himself.
I just put you on the spot there, Jonty. I love doing that. You might have noticed. I did mention my driver of the, or not driver of the day, the one to watch, Nico Hülkenberg. Great drive from him. But I think had Ricciardo just had a race where he kind of controlled it from the front and didn't have the issues, I think a big shout for the driver of the day would probably be Max Verstappen. Yes, it's only 9th place, but that's 9th place from 20th in Monaco. I think really aggressive today, some good overtaking, kept his nose clean, and although nobody's going to forget about this 6 in 6 bandwagon that everyone's jumping on, he really showed today that if he keeps it clean, he can do it.
Yeah, I mean, he was very, very fast, right from the word go, even on the Ultras. It did show a little bit how the quality of the field changes as you go a little bit higher, because he flew through the first 10, then got to Alonso, and was stayed there for the next 20 laps. So that does ask some questions further down the grid, largely about the cars. I mean, some of the cars were very, very bad. But he did do a stunning drive to pull off so many overtakes around Monaco.
Yeah, it's the sort of thing, if it happened around Canada, even though he's in a Red Bull, you wouldn't be overly surprised. You'd probably be saying, why isn't he higher? But around Monaco, it's so unheard of unless you get a crazy race. And we didn't have a crazy race. There was one brief virtual safety car, but that was it. There wasn't chaos or craziness at all, really. So to do that is, I think, massively impressive. And something else where Carlos Sainz picking up that point, have to give him a shout out for how he managed to let his teammate through and not let Verstappen through. That was impressive. I like that. That was very, very cleverly done by Renault and by Carlos Sainz. Yeah,
that was nicely done. That reminded me of Massa letting Alonso through in Brazil when he managed to keep the Red Bull on the outside at the same time. That was really canny driving by Sainz.
Yeah, absolutely. Disappointing day for McLaren. Nothing on the board for them. Van Dorn, kind of nowhere, really, if I'm being completely honest. I was defending him last week, but kind of nowhere. And Fernando Alonso, mechanical issues as he's about to get past. Irony of ironies, as I said at the start, by a Toro Rosso Honda. And that's not McLaren Honda banter. That's just the way Formula One works, isn't it, with its ironies? But I think, given how well Alonso qualified, he's going to be very disappointed with that. But he didn't really do a lot wrong today, to be fair. It was just a mechanical issue. But we need to talk about Williams. It's just beyond a joke now, quite frankly, isn't it, Jonty? I keep doing little laughs about it and a little bit of banter on Twitter, but it's getting beyond that. It's just ridiculous. They are so far off the pace, and yes, Sorokin got a penalty and lost 30 seconds because it was a stop go, but he was still nowhere anyway. And Stroll, well, the less said about him today, the better. In fact, at one point he said something like, why even bother racing anymore? And I tweeted you, didn't I, Jonty? Said, haven't we been saying that for quite a while about Stroll? But it's looking pretty dire for Williams, isn't it?
Yeah, it just gets worse and worse, and they're making bad calls as a team. Yes, Sorokin had a wheel nut problem on the grid, so they just carried on working on it, knowing they would get a penalty. Now, that penalty could have cost them a lot more. It probably has cost them a lot more than if they just left the car alone, start from the pit lane, because they were right at the back anyway, pretty much, and then work from there, hope for things happening in the race. They don't have that penalty to worry about, just dropping them down the order.
Yeah, I just don't see how they're going to get out of this, and I just feel they're going the same way as the likes of, we use them as an example quite often, Tyrrell. I think they're just slipping away from Formula One. They're not going to get any money, really, for 10th, in the championship. They're not. I can't see them finishing any higher than anybody else. Just a dire weekend all round. And we were praising Sirotkin before the race for his lap in qualifying, and then it all went wrong. Obviously, the penalty, not his fault in any way, shape or form. That's nothing to do with him. That is a team mistake. And then, I don't know, I worry for them. I don't think they've got any experience there to turn this around. Again, not trying to knock the drivers too much on it. I will Stroll today because he was a joke all weekend, quite frankly. Sirotkin was all right until today, and I think he deserves credit for Saturday rather than for today. Handled it very well. Didn't hear him moaning on the team radio despite his problems, pointing that one out. But they haven't got the experience in that team, Jonty, to turn that around. Yeah, you could argue Kubica, but he's only testing and simulator work. That's not enough input for me. He needs to be out there weekend in, weekend out, delivering the laps to know exactly what is wrong with that car.
Yeah, that's true. And you have to think that Kubica's experience isn't current relevant experience. The rules have changed multiple times since he was actually racing. But there is a point I'd like to make, was I was fingers poised on Twitter and sort of scribbling notes for the stream, ready to rip the stewards a new one when it came up under investigation for working on the car during Sirotkin's stop-go, when it was a guy standing there with a blower just for engine cooling. I was ready to explode at that point. How utterly stupid.
It's, yeah, lucky that one didn't get put through. They've done nothing wrong in there. When I didn't see the replays of it, I just heard that he'd been working on the car, so I assume Williams had done something to the car, but obviously I hadn't seen that, so yeah, not good. I worry for them. Another team that have gone backwards this weekend, but Magnussen Haas says they've got upgrades coming for Canada, so that should improve them. Haas, they really, I don't know. I don't even know what to say about them. They've just not really been on the pace at all from day one.
No, they haven't. From what we've seen in the previous races, it seems that the Haas suits the stuff where we've got sort of mid to high speed corners, not the super high speed stuff and not the slow stuff. They were pretty good around Spain. They were pretty good in Australia. And the speed was there in Bahrain, apart from a few niggles. So Monaco was never really going to suit them. I'm thinking they're going to do better in Canada. Yes, there's a big long straight, but most of the corners are relatively quick. So hopefully we'll see them come back to form.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know. I don't know if they can get the money together to develop. Well, Haas have got good money, to be fair, but we'll see where they end up. Force India were good. I think Perez a little bit disappointing, but the pace was definitely there from them. Sauber up until that moment for Leclerc. Few people, I have to say, it is, again, the vocal minority, as I always talk about on this channel, slamming Leclerc for that incident. His brakes failed. What I'd like to see you get in a Formula One car that has failing brakes and try and, at the fastest point of the circuit, try and stop the car, because you can't. So that was all it was. It was a brake, all it was. It was a brake failure, but a big crash. And I'm surprised, actually, we didn't get a full course safety car, Jonty.
Yeah, it's true. There was a lot of debris there, but both the cars were still mobile and well out of the way. It's worth noting, I was watching the Channel 4 coverage, and both Webber and Coulthard were praising Leclerc for how he dealt with that situation, because his brakes had gone, he knew his brakes were gone, and he was putting his own car into the wall just trying to avoid Hartley. He even crashes well.
Yeah. And the onboards and the offboards show his brake disc exploding. There's nothing a driver can do about that. It's a mechanical failure, and like you say, did very well. A few in chat saying he did very well not to make that a bigger accident, and you've just said that there, John. He even manages to crash well. So yeah, I think up until then he was having an all right race, nothing spectacular, but I think keeping his nose clean, he's doing well. Ericsson did well as well for 11th. Sauber, I'm very happy for Sauber this year. They're competitive, and that's where they need to be. So if Chaz joins us later, I'll ask him then. But Jonty, everybody picked Daniel Ricciardo as driver of the day. Who's yours?
I would have to go with Ocon. He was my one to watch from the pre-race stream, but he's just really pulled it out this weekend. Great in qualifying and held his own really strongly in the race. In a car that's been not very good all year up until this point, let's be honest. He's done an amazing job.
Yeah, I'd give Gasly a shout. Obviously, Hulkenberg, because he was my one to watch, so I get to brag that I got something right today, because I didn't get a lot else right. So yeah, that's something. But I kind of have to agree with Ricciardo, not so much because he started from pole and went to win the race, but everything he had to deal with in the meantime. And I don't usually agree. I like to pick somebody different, but I think not just the way he dealt with the situation, but the way he was on team radio, so calm. You know, he could have been panicking and he wasn't. And I think definitely going to go with Ricciardo. I've just had a message on Discord. I know what I'm going to get told off for now. In chat, one surname. Who is your driver of the day? Start letting me know. And before we jump on to any other talking points, we're going to read some stuff from Twitter as well. So let me know your driver of the day in chat. I think Ricciardo will be a popular one, to be honest. So definitely deserves that. So on Twitter earlier, I think it's Jake Humphreys, I saw do it with football on BT Sports with his, I think it's his 3-word match reports. And I asked you guys for your 3-race, Jonty's his first, 3-word race report rather. Almost some excitement says Jonty. F1 new, Max's Monaco overtakes. Dan says that was fun. Jaden better than expected. At F1 and Net says nervous then delighted. Kelly expected then expected the unexpected. Jeff, well done Daniel. Orange, I always said Orange Biking, I'm probably wrong. Can't stop Daniel. Asama, keep Grig girls. Mark, Canada is next. Absolutely can't wait for that one, Jonty. Kaylin, Ricciardo gets redemption. That's been a popular one. Max Stealth, easily fallen asleep. There's a few. I'll just spin through them without names now. Williams Martini Racing. Narrow cars needed. Agree with that. We're going to talk about that in a bit. Ricciardo's sweet redemption, says Scott's. Yeah, absolutely low. So thank you very much for getting us. And I'll always try and read some out on streams, trying to improve interaction on the streams and whatnot. So yeah, somebody saying they couldn't watch. Daniel a god. Daniel Ricciardo wins. Verstappen did phenomenal. Just 3 out. I think that's a very good point, actually, Jonty. It's Monaco, and we only had 3 retirements. I think you went with 7, and I went with 5.
Yeah, and Leclerc aside, which can be kind of let go because his brakes failed, no one put it in the wall.
Incredible. Absolutely incredible. Just looking for some others in chat that have started to put.
Yeah, William did.
Yeah, last names return. Yeah, did see that one. Daniel's Monaco payback, says TK. RIP Stroll Pride. It's Ericsson's fault, says Kirk. Yeah, Rosberg family fun, says ST. Yeah. No safety car, says David. Another one. Bit of a surprise there. Grosjean didn't spin. You guys are brilliant. Not a real race, that's 4, but I'll let you have it. Yeah, I mean, do you want to adjust your 3 words, Jonty? Are you quite happy with them? I think it pretty sums it up, doesn't it, really?
Yeah, I'm happy with that. Although, I did forget about last name coming back. It's good to see him again.
Yeah, we've missed him. He's an underrated driver. So yeah, we'll leave that one there. Let's talk about Monaco as a circuit. On Friday, as everybody knows, I did a video that got me a lot of flack. And it's very hard not to sit here feeling a little bit smug right now. I'm not going to lie. But it's one that we talk about all the time, Jonty. We're always going on about how maybe time to look at going somewhere else. I want to clarify something, and I think you agree with me, Jonty. We've discussed it a lot. The spectacle is stunning. The whole weekend, the glitz, the glamour, that's fine, that's brilliant. It brings a lot of money to the sport. It's great to see the drivers pushing, but it's just not racing to me. Especially today, it's kind of compounded by the fact that they're all sort of driving half-arsed because they don't want to wear the tyres out.
Yeah, and I was thinking about this before we came on. I came up with some of the music. Yes, you've got the huge spectacle. Everyone loves it. You've got the glitz, the glamour, beautiful cars and boats and people of both sexes before anyone jumps up about Greek girls. That's what makes Monaco the jewel that people see it as. However, the only times we get brilliant, great races at Monaco is when it rains. And when it rains at Monaco, there is no glitz and glamour because all the boats are empty and everyone's sat inside watching the TV. So you're never going to have both together.
No, I don't know. I get it. I get the excitement around it. And I'm not going to lie, before the lights go out, I get those butterflies. I do for every race. And I think that's great. But is this a track problem, Jonty? Or is this a car problem? Or is it, jumping on the fence again, kind of a mix of both?
I think it's very much a car problem. You've got the existing aero issues with not being able to follow, but the fact cars are so huge. I mean, it really doesn't appear so when you're looking at them and even watching the race. These cars are 6 feet wide, full 2 meters width limit that they have, and nearly 4 or 5 meters long. That's massive. It really is, and there's no need for them to be that big.
Thanks to everyone in chat for stealing the point I was just about to make, but look at Formula 2, look at the races we got in F2. There isn't the aero there that we have in Formula 1. The cars are a lot more narrow. The racing was brilliant, and that's, you know, I'm not saying that F1 should go to look like Formula 2 and have identical cars or anything like that, because I think that takes away from Formula 1 being the, quote, pinnacle of motorsport. But they can take a lot of inspiration from that and apply that to Formula 1 so that we get the races that we saw in F2 this weekend, because they were brilliant.
Yeah, they were. Then they always are. Even when you do get a race without much overtaking, they're really close together and really scrapping. And that's what keeps it interesting. Whereas in F1, they can't get close enough to have that scrapping and make it look tight.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? And it's not all about overtaking. Obviously, that's a massively important part of racing, but if they're close, there's always that. And I suppose we got it to an extent today with, you know, everyone driving slowly and looking after the tyres. At least they're close. You know, one mistake and you've lost your position. So that's great. But I mean, yeah, somebody just said in chat, I was just going to say F2 are shorter races. Could we be looking at maybe that kind of format? I know they're doing a poll on the F1 community thing that is terrible that they've launched. Laggy as hell, by the way, but go check it out. It's definitely worth signing. Was it the Fan Talk or Fan Say or something like that they've got going? They've got a poll on there talking about changing the weekend format. Would Formula 1 benefit, particularly around Monaco, from having a feature race that isn't as short as F2, but is shorter than the race we got on a Sunday, and then maybe a sprint race on a Sunday or the other way round?
But it's certainly one of the tracks where it could work, because there will be less of the management. They'd be able to just go for it the whole time. But they need to sort out the inherent problems with the cars themselves first. I mean, the tyres is a big one, not the compounds. The size. They went to these much wider tyres last year, you know, with the aim of speeding everything up, make the cars faster. Surely that'll make things more fun. Well, no, it didn't. Yes, the cars are faster, but there's less room for them to race. And the tyres last so much longer. That's one simple step. You know, keep this basics of this aero, because it does give them the aerodynamic grip, but reduce the mechanical grip.
Yeah, and I think we talk about 2019, 2021 a lot, because that's kind of what's going on at the moment in Formula 1. It's the big hot topic, isn't it? But they're fixing things in 2019, which says to me that they are kind of admitting it all went wrong in 2017. We have got stunning looking cars. We had stunning looking cars. And then they're turning around going, well, we got them good looking. We've made them faster. Problem is the racing's not as good. So now we're going to go and take a step in a different direction. And even with the 2019 changes, people have said it in chat. You've said it there, Jonty. The cars are still too wide. It doesn't matter. You know, what you do in 2019, races around Singapore, Monaco, street tracks, it's always going to suffer because the cars are too wide.
Yeah, they really are. And the overall dimensions is a real key factor. That's where they need to start. Everything else can just follow logically from that. But whether they've got anyone who thinks logically is another question entirely.
How long have you been following Formula 1?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there's not many out there, is there? That, I mean, we're fans. We're not technical experts by any stretch of the imagination, but there are certain things in Formula 1 that are completely obvious that seem to get missed by the FIA. So I guess the burning question, I had my say on Friday. I'll reiterate it for anybody that didn't hear it, but I'll come to you first, John T. Monaco, stay with tweaks, or go?
Stay with tweaks.
Yeah.
But those would be my tweaks suggested of making a launch event. A big, whole, spectacular week of F1 craziness.
Yeah, I'll just reiterate what I said on Friday. I mentioned that in the video, actually, but stay, but I'd make it something like the Monaco 100, make more of a fuss about it, and maybe even, I don't know, this is the cost of it, I guess, but in the dream world, get them to bring either classic cars or stick some V8s in the back of these cars and have a Monaco 100 only car and just go racing in Monaco and go crazy. But it'll never happen. We know it'll never happen. Again, I said on Friday, so long as Formula One exists, the Monaco Grand Prix will always be there, Jonty. It just brings in far too much money for Liberty, the FIA, whoever, and teams, of course, with sponsors.
Yeah, it does. And I will quite happily allow myself to be a hypocrite and say if there was any one race you want to sort of have good quality access to, that would be the one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to be there. I'd much prefer to be there than Silverstone or Hungary, something like that.
Yeah, ST just saying give them some F2 cars and the best driver win. Maybe that could be an idea for making it the Monaco 100. Equal cars, equal engines, get somebody in to supply that, bring some more money in for the sport and just send them racing. Not quite sure how well that will go down with, say, let's say Ferrari, if Sebastian Vettel, who is connected to Ferrari massively, goes and drives a car powered by Renault or Mercedes or something like that. I don't think that'll go down very well, but maybe, yeah. I mean, like I said, I enjoy it because it's Monaco, but more for the hype around it rather than, yeah, the racing itself, I think. Yeah,
I mean, maybe with the suggestions about the F2 cars, give them the F2 cars for the qualifying.
Mix the grid up.
Yeah, because then we will really see who the best drivers are.
That's a debate for a whole other day, Jonty. We're not going to jump into that one. I'll ask you guys in chat in a moment. But what I'm going to do is this morning or early this afternoon, if you caught the pre-race stream, I launched Sean versus Jonty. I did. Yes. Predictions. My predictions for the race from Tuesday when I did in the preview and Jonty's from Friday. It didn't go well, and I think it's fair to say, Jonty, neither of us really covered ourselves in glory. At all. To be not even on retirements, we were nowhere. You did get the points for the pole for Ricciardo and the win of Ricciardo. I got fastest lap for Verstappen. Thank you, Max. Got me a point on the board. But yeah, we were crap at this, mate. We need to put a bit more research into it, I think.
Yeah, well, I'm still one up, so I don't care.
Yeah. I am going to put the scores on screen now. Why not? Because you know what it is. It is 2-1 to Jonty, but that is only the first one. I will get him. There is a long way to go this season, and I'm going to be doing some more research, mate. I will get you by the end of the season, which didn't actually. Don't say hashtag Team Jonty.
Yeah, that's what's going.
Yeah, because the problem is if we do a hashtag Team Jonty, mate, you're going to win that because everyone loves you and everyone hates me. So
that's your job.
Yeah, I know, but yeah, okay, maybe.
That's why you do the rants.
I feel like I've just been told off. I don't know why, but I really do. But yeah, so 2-1 to Jonty at the moment. Long way to go. Yeah, I've had a couple of donations through, which I haven't mentioned because we got kind of chatting and started being stupid. But thank you very much to a real, I always say this wrong, a real capybara. He made a contribution. There's no question. Just want to say thanks for the amazing streams and videos. Keep up the good work and congratulations on 33k. Is it 33? Jesus. Thank you very much, mate. Really do appreciate that. And thank you as well to MRSTJ. Made a donation. Says Monaco to stay. And that leads me quite nicely to another one to upset the mods, but only because Charles just sent me, or somebody just sent me the finger on Discord. So would you keep Monaco? Would you get rid of it? Or would you tweak it? Pop your decisions in the chat there. Yeah, just trying to think of a standout performance we can really talk about, Jonty, because we've talked about Ricciardo, we've kind of covered Vettel and Hamilton. What was your take on Bottas today? Mercedes tried something different, didn't they, with the strategy? And it could have paid off with a safety car if the others were forced into a pit stop. But, you know, outside the box thinking could have paid off. But I expected more from both the Finns, to be honest, today.
He certainly could have been quickest in the last 20 laps or so. He'd had the tyres on for a long time, but they were the super softs. They were definitely going to have the life to the end. He could have really been making a push, and he didn't really seem to close the gap that much at all.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know if the top three were just too quick for him, or probably, I guess. But I just expected more from them, to be perfectly honest, today, and a little bit disappointed that they weren't really challenging. And it was close at the front because they weren't really pushing that hard. But I don't know. I'm not going to give them too much stick because both Raikkonen and Bottas have had very good starts to the season, and both have had their share of good and bad luck, of course. But just a little bit more from them in future. We've talked about pretty much everybody else on the grid. What's your rating, Jonty, out of 10 for Monaco today? It's a tricky one, as I said at the start, because you've kind of got to look at it as in terms of a race over the course of the season, but also versus other Monaco Grand Prix, because it is very unique, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I mean, I would give it a 5, purely because there was some intrigue there with what's going to happen with the tyres. That constant question of, are the ultras going to fall off the cliff? In the end, it didn't happen. If it had happened, and we had mad chaos in the last 10 laps of tyre changes and super quick cars chasing others down, it would have easily been a 7 or an 8, but it just didn't happen. So maybe we can hope for more next year, because as people are saying, we can talk about it all we want, it's never going to happen.
No, I agree. I mean, I'd go with 5 in terms of a Grand Prix, but I think for Monaco, I'd probably give it a 7, but just for the fact it's Monaco, versus other Grand Prix that we've had there. We've had some pretty horrendous races there in the past. We've had some really good ones as well. I keep talking about 96. I know that was chaos, but that was a great watch in Monaco. 97, I quite enjoyed that, but I was a Schumacher fan and he cruised that one. Was 22 seconds clear in 5 laps. Michael Schumacher in 97. Phenomenal drive. I know he got lucky with the Williams cock-up in the strategy. Not the first time we've said that, but yeah, I'd give it a 7, I think. But you're probably going to say I'm being a bit too generous there.
No, that's probably fair compared to just other Monaco Grand Prix.
Yeah, absolutely. There's not really a huge amount else to talk about. I'm going to take a couple of questions and whatnot from chat. Has Raikkonen had good luck, though? Yeah, he got good luck in China when Verstappen ran into the side of Vettel, got him that podium, because otherwise he was off the podium, wasn't he, Jonty? Am I remembering that right?
It was certainly in question.
I think he got a bit of luck there, but he did get a lot of bad luck this season, Kimi. I think that's fair to say. 97 was good.
Has he had bad luck this season or bad treatment?
It's a good question, Jonty. I'm supposed to be the one that puts you on the spot. That's unacceptable. I mix of both. He was kind of unlucky at the pit stop, wasn't he, in Bahrain?
Yeah.
So a mix of both, but yeah, it's a difficult one. Thank you very much to Alfonso for the contribution. Really appreciate that, mate. That's going to go towards some new equipment for Silverstone, hopefully. So awesome. Thank you very much for that. Oz was way worse. Monaco was do you know what? I will agree. It was better than Australia. I will agree with that. Australia was... It was Australia, wasn't it? It was just a little bit dull, I found. And Monaco, definitely better. Not a lot in it, but it was definitely better.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Not a lot in it, but at least we had real interest, whereas Australia was just blur.
Yeah. Why did the Hypersofts not last 77? We talked about at the start of the video briefly, Cater. I think, to be honest, Jonty, I think that number was pulled out of somebody's rear end. And I think you said propaganda, didn't you, from Pirelli?
It certainly seemed that way because, I can't remember his name, head of Pirelli or F1 guy too. Yeah, that's it, Mario Zola. He put that out in an interview in the middle of the week. Everyone was talking about it for the next 2 days, all up in arms.
Laundry sauce, but you still want to scrap Monaco before Australia? Don't think I said that. Yeah, I don't know about... Sorry, you've got me thinking now. I don't know about propaganda, but maybe they came and said, oh, yeah, these will do 77 laps. Kind of tricking everyone to try and give us a great race, maybe. But, yeah, I don't think that number was ever realistic. When it came out, and I put it in the news roundup, and I kind of was smirking a little bit while I did it, because it didn't ring true. There's no way a tyre that is the softest compound in Formula 1 history could do more laps than some of the harder compounds we've got now. There was just no way.
No, it was never going to happen. But the same could be said of the Ultra. That did far more than it should. So have the softer compounds really made the difference that we were hoping for? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm probably not going to see it enough, though, are we? I completely agree with what Ricciardo says. Bring it as a qualifying tyre to every race. That would be brilliant, and it would stop, or it wouldn't stop. It would make teams like Mercedes and Ferrari, and maybe even Red Bull, nervous in Q2 to go and put the slightly harder compound on to get benefit of strategy through fear that a few cars in the midfield stick on the hypersoft and jump them. And I think that would really mix qualifying up quite nicely and make it even more exciting than it is, because I think qualifying is one of the best bits of the weekend, to be perfectly honest. So, and that kind of messes with the race as well. So I think that as a qualifying tyre could work.
Yeah, it could. I mean, we used to have qualifying tyres many years ago that were they were even softer than the hypersofts we've got now. They literally could do a crawling out lap, a flying lap, and then a crawling in lap, and that was it. They were in the bin. So it's not quite to that extreme, but it could certainly work, because again, it's making the teams do it on raw pace. It's taking the clever equations out of it.
Rohan has made a contribution. Thank you very much. Really do appreciate that. He says, Lance Stroll seems to be very arrogant and have a serious attitude problem. How long do you think he'll stay in F1? Will Daddy's money keep him in indefinitely? I started watching F1 this year, and massive thanks to you and Jonty for your great work. Thank you very much for the contribution and your feedback there. I really appreciate that. Basically, for me, the plight that Williams find themselves in, so long as Mr. Stroll is going to keep bringing the money, they're going to have to take it, aren't they?
Yeah, at the moment they don't seem to have a choice, because they're so bad. They can't rely on any kind of knowledge that they'll be bringing money in from points.
Yeah, that's it, isn't it? And could that even guarantee Sirotkin a seat next year as well? Or if somebody else can rock up with a bit of money? There's rumours, weren't there, back in January of Ericsson possibly getting a seat there. So, I mean, he wouldn't want to do that now. It's a backward step, isn't it? But I think they're going to have to take money from at least one driver to survive until we get to 2021. If this financial restructuring actually happens, I'm quite sceptical on that, but they kind of need to, because they're gone otherwise.
Yeah, they are. They really are in danger. I'm going to go and see what I can find on their actual financial side, but you've got to believe that they're in danger, because they're just performing so badly. 2 years in a row where the car has just been complete junk.
Yeah, it's the surprise of it. I'm not going to talk about Williams too much, but when Paddy Lowe came in, we all thought, and we were talking about it, weren't we, pre-season, going over the car, going, this car looks all right, actually. They could do quite well. And we expected more from Paddy Lowe, more in terms of development, and even with upgrades, that car is still a long way off where it should be. I mean, not get too harsh on them, I guess, because this is Monaco. It was never going to suit Williams. It hasn't suited Williams for a long time. It's not a Williams track. We know that. So races like Canada, they should go a little bit better at with the long straights, and that Mercedes power we saw in Baku, they were more competitive. But it's really just that power unit that's keeping them anywhere near competitive on tracks like that, because if you stick a Renault in the back of that, they're 3 laps down every race, aren't they? They're nowhere. So, you know, I'll cut them a little bit of slack for Monaco, but when you look at what's come before, it's just another nail in the coffin is kind of how it feels, to be honest, Jonty. That sounds harsh, and I hate saying that. It's not bias, it's just the history around Williams. Oh, you just don't want to lose them, do you? You want to just grab them and, I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. It's just a horrible thing. And I just want to make a mention of what Backswiped said, just defending Sirotkin a bit, because he's right. At least he was going for it this weekend. He ended up with a pretty poor race, but he was really pushing and trying, and all Stroll was doing was crying over the radio. I don't think I've heard Sirotkin doing any actual complaining over the radio with regards to the car or the strategy and what have you so far, which is different.
Yeah, even when you go back to Australia, when the sandwich bag got caught in his brake duct or something like that, and he sort of, that's it, guys, race over. Didn't moan about it, didn't kick off. He could have done, but it's an unavoidable thing. But yeah, Lorenzo asks a very good question. We did touch on it in the pre-race stream today. Does this affect Ricciardo's decision to move? I think you touched on it as well earlier in this stream, Jonty. I think this changes Red Bull's approach more than it changes Ricciardo, because as good as Verstappen's recovery was today, again, without jumping on a bandwagon, it is still 6 incidents in 6 races. What happened in FP3 won't go away. The change in tone and approach from Red Bull, the way they're talking about Verstappen, is quite obvious this weekend. Even after the race, Christian Horner, really happy, still made comment about how Max has got to stop it. And they need his consistency there. And I think this might just change Red Bull more than it changes Ricciardo. And this puts him in a very powerful position.
Yeah, well, without knowing who is leaving with their contracts up, because we've still got the question marks about Hamilton's contract, which he just dragging out as long as possible. You've got Raikkonen's contract ending and this, that, and the other. He's got all of the cards right now. He can just sit there and say, right, who's going to pay me what? Who's going to give me the best car? That's at least how it feels. And certainly after winning Monaco always adds a little bit more to a driver's stock, if you like, than other races. So he's really in the best position out of all the drivers at the moment.
I don't know if I've asked your opinion on this on a stream or anything, Jonty, but Brendon Hartley, I do want to talk about him. He was unlucky this weekend with obviously Leclerc's brake failure taking him out, and unlucky with his qualifying lap with the traffic. But he's not been excellent again. I think he has been better, but he's not been brilliant again. He's under pressure. Talk was that this could be his last Grand Prix. Amazingly, Wehrlein and Kubica allegedly in the frame. I'm still very sceptical about this. Is he a driver that is probably clinging on now in Formula One?
A little bit, yeah. I still go back to the incident in Baku. Sorry, that's my windows whistling. It was just, I can't shake that feeling from Hartley. The fact that incident in Baku really terrified him. You know, you saw him afterwards, he was white as a sheet, he was almost visibly shaking. No F1 driver should be that rattled by a near incident. An actual crash or incident, you could understand it a lot more, but that was just a close call. And he looked like he'd just seen a ghost. That is a dangerous attitude, or sort of, what's the word?
Mindset? Yeah,
mindset. That's a dangerous thing to be in a Formula One driver. You never know what the other drivers must be thinking. You know, he could just completely lose his mind at some point and freak out and cause a bigger incident. I know it's probably highly unlikely, but there's always that thought there.
Yeah, a few in chat saying that they feel that Hartley had a great drive or a brilliant drive today. He was definitely better. There's no denying that. The problem is, a good drive is not going to be enough for Red Bull for him. It feels to me, dare I bring this argument up again, it feels a little bit like Kvyat in that he's kind of got the target on his back now from the team, and it's going to take some incredible drives to shake that, especially when you look at Gasly, you know, 4th in Bahrain, 7th today. That is big. That is a big points gap between teammates in virtually identical machinery.
Yeah, Gasly's really showing his pace, and Flying Tiger said it is dangerous. Gasly has said, yeah, screw it, and moved on, and he's still just as quick. He's still really pushing, whereas Hartley hasn't really sped up all that much. And if anything, the gap between them as teammates seems to be increasing. Now, whether that's the pressure of the target on his back affecting him, who knows? I mean, it certainly seems to be affecting Grosjean at the moment, even though Steiner insists he hasn't got a target on his back. But I bet he has.
Yeah.
It's all down to that mindset.
ST's made a contribution. Yeah. Thank you very much for that, mate. He says, here, have some gambling profits to buy yourself some Kellogg's premium cornflakes. And remember, kids, don't gamble. I'm not entirely sure he exists as a person, by the way. I'm pretty sure ST is just like one really dodgy side of my subconscious. But anyway, that seems like, I don't know why it seems like a natural point to bring Chaz in, but we'll say a very good afternoon for the last sort of 15 minutes of stream to Chaz. How did you rate that race then?
Honestly, I thought that race was boring. Even though there were close battles, I never thought for one moment there was actually going to be an overtake. So Yeah, I thought it was quite boring.
I mean, if you want to come on and just say what you think, mate, that's absolutely fine. Yeah, I mean, I still think from a Monaco perspective, it wasn't awful, but from a Formula One racing, when you put it side by side with somewhere like Bahrain, which is a ridiculous comparison, I know, it wasn't brilliant in that respect. But yeah, driver of the day then, Chaz? Sort of catching you up on our questions now.
I'd have to go with Daniel Ricciardo because of the problem he had and how he managed that and kept Vettel behind and eventually pulled away at the end of the Grand Prix. But I want to give a shout out to Ocon and Gasly because them two were so quick today, all race long, especially Gasly, who every race is just impressing me more and more.
Yeah, he's one of those, isn't he? We didn't really know what to expect from him when he was signed by Toro Rosso, and a few people were quite, not critical, but sceptical of the appointment, thought, well, was there nobody else better? But I think he's done very well this season. He's had his moments, there's no doubt about that, but I think he did a good job. So, yeah, I'd agree with Ricciardo, and I know, John, you went with Ocon, didn't you? So, a little bit of a split there, but I still think Ricciardo deserves that one. Could you see Gasly putting Verstappen under pressure, Chaz, or is that the most ridiculous question I've ever asked you ever?
No, you've asked probably more ridiculous ones.
Thanks, mate. Really appreciate that.
It depends. It depends how the Toro Rosso develops. If it becomes a good car for the last part of the season and Gasly is consistently 7th and 8th, and Verstappen is still crashing, then he could put slight pressure on, but I don't think Verstappen is going to be under pressure from Gasly.
Yeah, I just like putting you on the spot, you know that, Chaz. So it's just one of those. We'll start taking questions from chat then, because there's not really, unless there's anything you wanted to mention from the race, Chaz.
Oh yeah, Williams.
Oh yeah.
What an absolute awful race. What were they playing at today with Sirotkin especially? Like, what were they doing? They're an experienced team. They've been in Formula One for 40 plus years. They know what the 3-minute warning means. So why are they making that mistake? I'm sorry, that's just not good enough. And then they almost got another penalty because they thought they were working on the car during the penalty, which turned out not to be the case. But they are just so bad. They do well in qualifying with Sirotkin, and then they throw it away before the race has even started.
We were just talking about that quite a bit about Williams. They really are in a mess, but I guess we'll see if they can turn it around, but there isn't a lot of hope there from them. Just looking for a couple of questions. Kvyat was fired for 2 errors. Kvyat was fired because they wanted to get Verstappen in that car. I don't think I said it at 1 o'clock. I just feel that, for me, the decision was taken by Red Bull to put Verstappen in that car at the end of 2015, but they needed an excuse to put him in that car, and Kvyat gave them that excuse because he beat Ricciardo in their first season together. They couldn't have dropped him without taking a lot of flack for that, so they needed him to make a mistake, and they got that after Russia. But bearing in mind, again, he beat his teammate in their first season together, and he had the team's only podium to the point where he was sacked. So, yeah, I get what people are saying, that, you know, of course his accidents contributed, of course they did, but that wasn't, for me, the reason why they ditched that. Talk about the midfield battle. Massively tight this weekend, Jonty. What was about half a second between 7th and 17th, wasn't there, in qualifying? So close.
Yeah, it was great to see. But that is part of the good nature of Monaco, which does really close things up because it's such a tight track. It's what we want to see. I mean, the race result doesn't really reflect that as much, with some drivers, 2 laps down. But it bodes well for the rest of the year. I mean, it's been pretty close all year anyway. So, as it moves forward, could be even closer, we hope.
James Donovan asks a great question, actually, one that we haven't been asked before, which is rare. Has Checo's career plateaued? Is it over for him in terms of future advancement in Formula One? That is a really good question. That is, because I like Perez and I do rate him very highly, but he strikes me now as one of those drivers who is probably going to end up as just, again, in quote marks, a midfield driver, because so much young talent is coming through that just seems to be overtaking him, if you like, in the queue.
Yeah, it feels that way. He had his chance, and he was really impressing people when he was at Sauber. That's why he got the call up to Force, one step up to Force India. He should have been linked with the Ferrari seat maybe a bit earlier, but I think Raikkonen coming back put paid to that.
Yeah,
he deserves a shot further up. I mean, and we know that he had the McLaren drive, but at the time that he had the McLaren drive, it wasn't a front-running car. So, yeah, it's a tricky one. He deserves more, but it could well be the case he just gets overtaken by someone younger.
Razor official, not the fake one, the official one, says, could Daniel Ricciardo be a title contender, Chaz? That's a good question as well. He's got as many wins as Vettel and Hamilton, hasn't he, this season?
I don't think he can, though, because if you look at the races where he's not won, he's either finished like 4th or 5th or has retired. And I just don't see how that Red Bull can be good enough at tracks like the next track we go to. I don't think Red Bull will have the fastest car there. You got Spa, Monza, Hockenheim, plenty of tracks which will not suit the Red Bull, which are coming up, and they're going to have reliability problems sometime during the season. So, great win today, but they're not title contenders. I just don't see it.
No, it's a good point, and it's going to come down to he's going to need some luck as well. But the thing is, Jonty, I guess every world champion has needed luck at some point.
Well, yeah, absolutely. All sports have some degree of luck with them. F1 probably a bit more than most, to be fair, because you've got a lot of things out of the control of the driver. But no, I think he could be in with a shout of it. It's, as you said, it's going to depend a lot on how much the Ferraris and the Mercedes trip over each other. But they've got at least 2, maybe 3 tracks, later in the year that are going to suit them a lot more than the others.
Yeah.
So if they can maximise their haul there and keep things reliable for the others, you never know what might happen.
Yeah, that's it. Like I say, just a little bit of luck. I can't see it. I tend to agree with Chaz in that there are too many faster circuits than the ones that are going to suit Red Bull. But then Red Bull, pull the strategy out the bag like they did in China with a little bit of luck there, and they maybe could. It's a tough one, but at the moment, whether, without looking into the crystal ball too far ahead, at the moment, you'd have to say he is. He's top 3 in the championship and he has as many race wins as Hamilton and Vettel, but over the course of a season, I think it's going to be a little bit too much. Gearbox penalty for Alonso in Canada. I've not read anything, but is he? It might be okay, actually, because the last race for his gearbox? Race 6, yeah, it should be, shouldn't it?
It should be
7. No, it's 6, isn't it?
It depends on the circumstances of the reasons that they change it as well.
Yeah. I'm just trying to think back off the top of my head if he's had a gearbox penalty already this season. I don't think he has. So, yeah, like you say, it depends on what else needs to be changed and whatnot, possibly. But based on the rules and having to replace it, no, should be okay. I think I did just see a question. If Stroll leaves F1, where will he go? F2 or F3? Probably home. Maybe F2. Somebody might take him on, or a reserve driver role somewhere, but it's tough. Probably Formula E.
No, Formula E or IndyCar.
And that's not a knock at Formula E, by the way. Eggy will be telling me off for that one, but yeah, possibly. How long do you think Stroll and Sirotkin will stay at Williams for? I think as long as they need the money, to be honest. He can't go to F2. Did he win the F2 title? Or is he too old? Is there an age limit? I don't, there's not an age limit, is there?
No, there isn't an age limit.
Hang on, no. Sorry, Drauga's just made the point. Once you've done a full season in F1, you can't go back to F2. That is correct, yes.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, very good point. Thank you, mate. Pointed that one out. What team could Markelov join with in F1? Any. Looking at him around Monaco this weekend, he needs to be in Formula One. Everyone's raving about Norris. Fair enough, he's very good. George Russell's getting a lot. You know, we live in the UK, so that's all we hear is Hamilton, Russell, Norris. But Markelov, I know he's a 5-year F2 driver, but I'm not going to hold that against him. He's clearly good enough.
Yeah, he did have some ties to Renault in the past, I think.
The F1 guy, Tiamat Marduk, is better than you. Well, he doesn't do real world F1, so I'd probably disagree. But if you think that, mate, you can always go away. It's not a problem. Markelov replacing Hartley. Good shout, possibly. He's not got any ties to Red Bull, which makes that difficult, but then neither of Kubica or Wehrlein.
He would be a more sensible option than them. Maybe not as much as Wehrlein. Wehrlein would be the best option.
If Adrian Newey is still designing the Red Bull, then why should Danny Rick risk missing out on the next streak of World Drivers titles with the new future changes coming? What a great point, Bryce. That is a very... I wonder if that's in his mind anywhere.
Well, negotiate it into the contracts.
Yeah.
Say, look, if I'm going, but I want the option to come back.
That's a very good point, actually. Yeah. Anything you want to add on that one, Chaz?
Adrian Newey will still design very good cars, and that will be a factor. But in this current era of Formula One, it is mostly still about the power unit. You can design the greatest aerodynamic car you want, but if you don't have the power unit, a good enough power unit, then you're not going to be successful. So it's still down to what they do in terms of, are they going to stay with Renault, go with Honda, or have, I don't know, Cosworth in the future? I don't know. It's all down to the power unit.
I think given the... What's the word I'm looking for? Well, we'll go with incident. It's the wrong word, but the incident today with the power unit and whatnot, I was pretty sure anyway that the Honda deal was at least penciled in. I'm pretty sure that's going to be signed very quickly, because at the end of the day, although it didn't see him retire, it put that easy win at risk.
Yeah, it did. And you also have to look at the fact of who's got more engine problems so far this year, Honda or Renault?
Yeah.
Can you excuse me for a minute?
And as well, you know, who Chaz is realistically going to be able to give Red Bull 100% backing. If you look at Renault, they've got a works team, they've got McLaren. They're not going to get the backing that they got, say, through 2010 to 2013 when they're winning titles. And if you get a Honda works deal done, then you've got them behind you. So even if the engine's terrible when they arrive in Australia next year, with Red Bull's backing and Honda and them all working together, and of course, therefore, as well, Toro Rosso as a bit of a test team, it could actually work out quite nicely. It is a gamble, but it could work out quite nicely for them.
They would get more backing, but look what that did with McLaren. They had full backing with Honda, and look how that turned out. So I don't think having full backing automatically means they're going to be better. I would still, for Red Bull, I would still stay with Renault, because even if they put the Honda in that car, I don't think the Honda is going to be massively better in 2019 or 2020. So they might as well keep the Renault for 2 years and then get rid of Renault and then put in, I don't know, a Cosworth or something for 2021 and beyond.
Yeah, I kind of get what you... Yeah, I kind of agree in a way with the stick of Renault, but the more I look at Honda is how well they've done this year with reliability. If they can push that development to performance next year, it could work quite nicely for Red Bull. But like we keep saying a lot, you know, it is a huge gamble either way, because Renault are a known entity to Red Bull. They know that they're going to have these reliability issues. They probably know a few of the fixes for them on their car and what they can do. But if you put a Honda engine in, it's all... Although they've had a year with Toro Rosso, for the A team, if you like, the first team in Red Bull, it's still quite a big gamble.
Yeah, it's still a gamble. But I will say as well is you have to remember there are more Renault-powered cars on the grid. So I think in terms of reliability between Honda and Renault, that might be a bit exaggerated in terms of who is better, because, again, there are 6 Renault-powered cars on the grid. But Yeah, again, I would stay with Renault because it's better the devil you know than the devil you don't.
Maybe. But like people say, it does all come down to how things progress and what the final decisions are for 2021.
I think as well we have to remember next race is Canada. Renault are bringing a big update and so are Honda. That could be the deciding weekend.
Yeah, there's that as well. It's going to be interesting to see which of them comes out best.
Yeah, it's quite an intriguing one. And I still think that holds a lot of the... I think that's going to set the domino effect. I know it's not driver market technically, but I think Red Bull's decision in terms of future engine suppliers will probably push Daniel Ricciardo into a decision, and then everything will just tumble and there'll be drivers all over the place and we'll not know who's racing where, but eventually it'll all come together. I just think that is going to be... That's what's stopping everything going at the minute, is that decision on their power unit for next year.
Yeah, well, like you say, we've got big upgrades coming next race, and also we've got to see out this year. I mean, if they start getting big masses of retirements and problems towards the end of the year, that's when it's going to be a much more difficult decision.
Just saw somebody... Yeah, sorry, I can't find a question. Just somebody saying about them making an engine themselves. I still think that's the route McLaren should be going down, to be honest. And I don't ever see Red Bull doing it because they're a team owned by an energy drinks company, and that's kind of how Red Bull have always been, haven't they? They've not really been, if you like, they've never really made anything, have they, as a brand? They sort of bought the drink and whatnot from somebody else. But McLaren certainly could be building their own engine. And as I keep saying on Twitter and to so many people, if Arrows could do it, all right, badly, but but if they could do it in 1998 on their budget, there's no reason why McLaren couldn't be building their own engine. But then there's nobody to blame, is there? Yeah,
there is that. It's always nice to have a scapegoat.
Yeah, we're not going to jump into that one. Take a couple more questions and then we're going to end it there because this is second stream today. And if there's any background noise, by the way, I do apologise. I've got two fans pointing at my PC, which is going crazy because I think it's a bit hot and it doesn't enjoy doing any work. A little bit like me actually, which is not a good thing to say. But yeah, so did see a question. Why Toro Rosso so good recently? I think they just seem to have hit quite a sweet spot, don't they, with the relationship they've got with Honda, and I think Gasly's doing very well, and they just look happy as a team in general, to be honest.
Yeah, they're keeping things tidy. I think that's the biggest key. Just get things organised, get the whole team all in the same mindset with all the same goals, and just keep things organised. You don't have to push too far and go crazy, trying outlandish stuff just to try and scrape that extra point. Just keep things all nice and neat, and the points will come eventually. I think the car will get quicker as you go along.
Luke Parker makes a good point. Franz Tost is crucial to that team. He does definitely keep them well organised and in line, doesn't he?
Yeah, and Iron Fist, a lot of people think, because he can be extremely vocal when things don't go his way.
I'm going to take two more. I've seen them. The first one is from your mum. Which team will Alonso race with next year? Any opinions? I'm just going to stop laughing for a minute and I'll come to you first, Chaz.
Alonso will not be on the grid next year. I think Alonso will be done at the end of this year. After what happened in Spain in terms of the car progressing, but not progressing enough, and then what's happened in Monaco, it's over. Alonso's career is over, so I don't see why he would, or even how he can continue now.
Yeah, I was going to say next year he'll be with the Toyota WEC team.
I was just going to say I think he'll go to Indy next year. There you go. A few differing opinions. And the question, I can't remember your name and I can't find you on chat. I do apologise, but the final question for today is one we do get asked quite often, but I do like to end on it every now and again, especially with all the talk about drivers. Realistically, how many drivers could retire at the end of this season? It's a good question. I'm going to say definitely 2, possibly 3. Raikkonen and Alonso, I think, will go, and here's where I get accused of being a hater. There's something going on with Lewis Hamilton. I don't care what people say. He hasn't signed for a reason. Whether he's thinking about going to another team, I don't know. Maybe he's thinking about other ideas after Formula One already. I still think he'll stick around, but he has to be put on the could list for me, definitely, until he puts pen to paper.
Yeah, Kimi, definitely. Unless he decides that he wants to stick around, because he's certainly made himself worthwhile. Alonso probably. Yeah, Hamilton. I mean, I called it before Christmas last year. And he seems to be doing his best to make me think it's going to happen.
What do you think, Chaz?
I think Alonso and Raikkonen will retire, and I think Hamilton, at the moment, I'd probably say he's 70% going to stay in F1. But as you said, no doubt there is something up with him, because even though he has improved, and that's, it's clear to see that his performance has got better. Why has he not signed the contract? He should have signed it in February if he really wanted to, and he still hasn't signed it. So something is clearly up. But yeah, Alonso and Raikkonen, I think, pretty much guaranteed them two will go.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people have been saying with Hamilton, we hear a lot of news saying negotiating about money and what have you. It's not money. It can't possibly be money. Not when you've already got that much.
Yeah.
That would be insane.
That's come from Christian Horner as well, hasn't it, really?
Yeah.
So.
And somebody, young class saying in chat, Hamilton won't quit, he wants Schumacher's record. No, he's not bothered about Schumacher's record. Senna was his hero.
Yeah.
He's matched him and beaten him. He's got nothing left to do.
When you said before Christmas, Jonty, wandering onto another, just staying with this topic for a minute because it's quite a good one, but when you said before Christmas that you thought he'd retire, I thought you were drunk. I thought you're talking nonsense, mate. There's no way. He loves Formula One. Look how ready he is. We got to the start of the season and I was saying he looks more pumped and more hyped for this than he's ever been. And then the VSC happened in Australia and he hasn't been right since. And then he looked back to his sort of old self, if you like, in Spain. And then this weekend he's sort of gone back to being a little bit flat, which you can understand because Mercedes haven't been good this weekend at all. So you totally get that. But the longer this contract situation goes on, the more, with Chaz talking in percentages, I was 100% he'll sign. But the longer this goes on, I'm slowly dropping to, 90, maybe 80%. And I don't know, he doesn't look 100% happy. And I've seen a couple of people in the chat just there saying he looks bored. Club Sinking is one there. He really does. And I think he's got a lot going on in his personal life in terms of his own, not sort of personally, but in terms of his own sponsorship deals and the things he wants to do after Formula One. He's not getting any younger. I just wonder if... I don't know. I'm really torn on it because sometimes I look at him like after Spain and think he's happy. He wants to do F1. And then you watch him some weekends and goes, he doesn't want to be here anymore.
No, exactly. You have to think that there's just something not right. I mean, and it's not just from the end of the season or the VSC in Australia. For me, it goes back to that whole stupid media Instagram thing. He has been miserable since then.
Yeah, he's not been himself. He's just not been himself. And some of the excuses that are coming out, when you go, we're going to get round to it, and you go, okay, they're taking their time and they want to make sure they get this right. But the thing for me is I'm going to call it as a BS excuse that came out from Mercedes. I don't know if it was this week or last week when they were asked about it. And they said, oh no, we keep coming round to get to it, or we're going to get to it. And then something gets in the way with the sponsor or with personal life. Sod off. You've been on about this since January. That is not an excuse. There's something going on. You can, they can make their excuses all they want. Things keep getting in the way. No, there's something getting in the way, and it's nothing to do with sponsors or, I don't know, your dinner was ready earlier than you expected or whatever. I don't know what excuses they're coming up with, but it's, something going on there. We will see, I guess, but I'm going to end on a question. Screw it, I'm going to ask it. Would F1 be worse off without him, Chaz?
Yes, because he is a personality that a lot of people, take interest in. He is still a very good racing driver and an exciting racing driver. And whether you like it or not, he does bring a lot of celebrity interest into F1 at the moment because of the relationships he has in America. So yeah, F1 would definitely miss him, but they wouldn't miss him for long.
What do you think, John T?
The likes of us would miss him a lot more than F1 right now, because all of this debate and what have you about the contract and his mood and his demeanour and all the rest of it is great for us. It's not great for F1.
Asking if F1 would be better off is a totally stupid question. It's not totally stupid. It's quite a relevant question, but whatever. I think we know who you were a fan of. There we go. But to be honest, I think for his racing, the sport will be worse off because he is brilliant on the track. There's no denying that. Even when he's having a miserable weekend, if you turn your volume off and don't listen to his team radio, it's great to watch him at his best. There's no doubt about that. His demeanour, I wouldn't miss that. I think his negative demeanour, the way he is as a person, doesn't really bother me that much, to be honest. I don't really keep up with his celebrity lifestyle, so I'm not really bothered. But I wouldn't miss the personal side to him. But I'd definitely miss him as a driver on track, if that makes sense. So, yeah,
that's half the problem. You're quite right. He's amazing to watch when he's at his best.
Yeah.
And so far this year, we've seen him at his best for exactly one pole position lap.
Yeah. I agree. But we'll see. A long way to go this season, as I keep saying, with lots of things at the moment. But can you tell us what happened with Instagram? I'll let somebody else say that because I'm not opening that debate, because that will be... what is it Chandler says in Friends? Like, cans, worms everywhere. It would just be absolutely horrible. Thank you very much, John T, for joining me for this one and for the stream earlier. That got a lot of positivity. Then we get a lot of dislikes on this one, though, and quite a bit of hate, but there we go. Thank you as well, Chaz, for coming along. I know you had your video to do, mate, but I really appreciate you taking a bit of time to come and chat to everyone.
No problem. Thanks for having me on. And I tried to get on earlier, but of course I had to tend to my own business.
Yeah. And thanks for the debate, as always. Thank you to chat for making it more interesting than the race, to be quite honest.
Yeah.
And we'll see you in Canada.
Yeah, definitely. Canada's the good one. We're looking forward to that one. But I'll probably chat to you two in a bit. Thanks again, guys.
See you later.
Bye.
Yep, thanks again to John T and Chaz. It's great to get as many opinions on here as we can. Thank you to everyone in chat as well for getting involved and not being, or to those who weren't trolly. Really do appreciate it. And for your support, your continued support is absolutely awesome. Yeah, I will be back tomorrow with the Monaco Grand Prix full race review. That's something I'm going to be getting your feedback on in the future, because it doesn't seem to do too well with views. I know some quite enjoy me doing the review, but when we do the race debrief like this, I don't know if you want a review 24 hours later, but we'll talk about that another day. Definitely want to just maybe in a channel update stream or something like that, we'll do something and get some stuff back from the community. You can follow me on social media. Links are all in the description down below as ever, as well as links to Patreon and to Streamlabs as well if you want to support the channel. Going to Silverstone in July, so any money that does come in from you guys goes straight into some new equipment for that one, because I'm pretty dire with what I've got, to be honest, a phone and a really dodgy mic, but we'll see how we go with that one. Looking forward to Silverstone, and like I say, I'll be back tomorrow. The next live stream will be next Sunday for the Weekly Word, which is what we're going to call the Sunday streams now. Exactly the same format, nothing's changing, just with a slightly more interesting name than Sunday Live, because everyone seems to do that. But as ever, thank you for watching. I've been Sean, this has been the F1 Word, and until next time, goodbye.